guys? Now you might be wondering what's with this getup, but you know, fun fact is, and little known fact is that May actually spends quite an inordinate amount of my time gaming. So some people have asked, okay, we're so really into all this astrological profiling and whatever, and is it really only for all like the very intense relationship, career kind of stuff? And I'm like, not really. So when we talk about the fun part of astrological profiling, question is, what does astrological profiling say about gamers? So in fact, today, I'm going to talk about 11 types of profiles and the type of gamers that it produces. So if you guys are ready, let's start with the first one. Profile number 1 is the trigger-happy gamer. So in astrology, we would call this the Mars Jupiter profile, also known as the warrior. So how can you tell the trigger-happy gamer? Those of you who are really familiar with gamers will know something called the Leroy Jenkins. Okay, so he's famous for, you know, running into the battlefield. Everybody's like still discussing like what to do, and the fellow's like, "Yeah, let's go, Leroy Jenkins!" And you know, you can always tell this is the person who, once they start the game, they will straight away jump in with all their weapons and start whacking, and they very fast die. So that's your Mars Jupiter. They're excited and they like fast-paced kind of game. Profile number 2. This is what I call the completionist. So in astrology, we refer to this as the Sun-Saturn profile, also known as the achiever. How you can tell that you're a completionist is especially those games where you have like a task list. So you know, at the side of the screen where you have like all this stuff that you're supposed to do, which technically is kind of like optional. This Sun-Saturn profile has to do every single thing that's on the list because it drives them nuts that there's just that one thing they haven't complete. And the other thing that the Sun-Saturn profile loves is things like leaderboards. So when the players are being ranked and they try to level up, and you go from this leaderboard to the next leaderboard, and when this idea of a promotion are very important for them, right? So that's the completionist. Now, profile number 3 is what I call the resource manager. And in astrology, we call this the Venus-Saturn profile, also known as the curator. Now, these people love resource management games. Now, this comes from especially a lot of like those simulation games where you have like how many wood, how many stone, how many cows, how many sheep, that kind of thing. So they love to organize like the farm, make sure that you know they're producing enough cows and that kind of stuff. Or they'll go and do all the research. You know, they'll figure out like, oh, you know, if we sell the gold ore, it's not worth very much. But if I build a furnace and then I make like gold bars or something, and then that's how they make more money. Okay, so the Venus-Saturn profile, the curator, really likes games that are like money management, and it doesn't have to be money. So they like capitalist games, simulation games, city building games, even if it's the fighting type games, but you need to accumulate like all these wood and stuff. Like yeah, so they really like that kind of game. So that is the resource manager. Okay, profile number 4 is what I call the open world sandbox gamer. And in astrology, we call this the Sun-Uranus profile. They are also known as the individualist. Now, how you can tell this open world gamer is that they really dislike games that are linear. So these people have some real problems following instructions. And what this means is that when they go from one level to another, it's not enough for them that you tell them, oh, complete 3 things, then you go on to the next level. Not their style. What they really want is a completely open world that if they choose to, they can follow the linear storyline and go on to the next level. But actually, they kind of really want the option of like, don't feel like doing this mission. I just want to get into a boat and sort of row myself to an island and complete the penguin adventure or whatever it is. That's your open world gamer. In general, these guys really like, they also don't mind a lot of this community gaming. This idea of like connecting with various people around the world, we form a guild, that kind of stuff. Yeah, they quite like that kind of stuff too. Profile number 5. This is what I call the card gamer. Okay, now in astrology, we refer to this as the Mercury-Saturn profile, also known as the expert. Now, how you can tell the card gamer is, you know, if you're familiar with these card games, they're very complex. If you've tried Hearthstone, if you've tried Magic the Gathering, it's a lot of like calculation going on. Like you have to keep track of how many mana you have, your HP. You want to take note of like, you know, whether this is like fire power or earth power or wind power or whatever it is. And you know, for those of you who don't belong in this category, it can be really mind-boggling to watch these guys playing card games, because there's so much calculation going on, and you're like, hey, you're supposed to be having fun, but then you're like, you know, like computer going. Now these guys get very serious about their calculations. It's not uncommon to see them literally have their calculator open on their phone so that they're counting points. Or Excel sheets, right? These guys love Excel sheets. They love making them. The kind where, you know, there are 17 tabs for all the various scenarios. They love to make these sheets, and they also love going on Reddit, and they love going on like these like discussion boards to download other people's Excel sheets too, so they can compare. Basically, they love boxes with numbers in them. Now, there's also a variation of this particular profile, and it comes in the form of people who like word games. So the expert can, some types of the experts, they like those word games where you fill in the blanks, or even like text-based games. The kind where you go in there and you type open the door, and then the door opens and you go into a new space. So the truth is, these guys seriously geeky. And the next one is profile number 6, is what we call the Skyver. Now these are people who, they want the reward, but they didn't really want to do the work for it. Now in astrology, we call this the Mars Neptune, also known as the idealist. So these people like to do the dreaming, but when they have to actually see like, oh, so in order to cross this level, I have to go and like fight 5 missions before I can cross this level. And what these guys are doing is there a shortcut? Is there a sneaky way of getting around it? So you know what these guys do, and here's how you spot them, yeah? They form like a guild or like a team, and they're supposed to go in and fight the big bad, right? So what happens is when the mission starts, once they go into the fighting arena, their first priority is to find a corner to hang out in. So it's like if they're playing Fortnite, or if they're playing Monster Hunter or whatever it is, well, they just go look for a nice little wooden shack somewhere and then try to figure out whether they can stand behind the wooden shack. So that's when everybody goes off to fight the big bad. And you know, they're just kind of waiting there for the victory music, you know, and what especially in games where, you know, after you fight the big bad and then all the loot is on the ground, that's the guy who shows up after the big bad dies. He just go around picking up the loot that other people have left behind, you know. Even if it's picking up like scraps and stuff, they're fine because, you know, it's free stuff. Okay, so that's the Skyver. Profile number 7 is known as the grinder. So in astrology, we also refer to this as the Mars Saturn, or what I call the craftsman. And games are starting to become like super grindy. And those of you who have played Final Fantasy VIII, if you recall how you had to draw for magic in order to junction, right? So you're like, every bad guy you see, you're like drawing like 100 wind or 100 earth or whatever it is. And it takes hours doing the same thing over and over and over again. So grinding is it's actually kind of enjoyable for these like Mars Saturn people, because it's there's a foreseeable outcome. You know, you kind of know that if you get like 100 wind magic, then after that you can junction and get some, you know, benefit out of it. And the other thing about the Mars Saturn, the grinder craftsman, is that they like building games. So you realize that in a lot of games, like for example like Minecraft, Ark Survival, The Sims, where they give you a lot of these opportunity to grab materials and then build things. And these guys tend to want to build like all these massive towers and huge mansions. And generally speaking, after they're done, these are the guys who put it like mods that they put on Steam and allow other people to sort of download. Yeah. So this Mars Saturn, if you look at what they create, it's like easily takes like weeks, days, hours just to, you know, build all these tiny little details. Okay. So for Mars Saturn people out there, I love you, because I love downloading the stuff that you already created. Okay, that brings us to profile number 8, or what I call the Destroyer. In astrology, we refer to this as the Sun-Pluto profile. They are also known as the Transformers, or the anti-heroes. So these guys, they kind of want to be heroes, but in order to be a hero, you kind of have to like annihilate everyone else. So these guys tend to work really well in very competitive, like direct fighting kind of games, especially if they come face to face with an opponent or like some form of a big bad that appears to be like a bad opponent. Now these guys are so afraid of dying that their top priority is to be strong. So if this means that they get the best weapon, if this means that they get the strongest spells, or they completely block you until you cannot even act anymore. The whole idea is to make you so weak that I will win. So that's one of those things that they do. The other profile that's very prone to this kind of behavior is also the Mars Pluto, or what I call the Watchman. So these guys are always on the watch out for like, oh my god, that guy played that spell, and this means it's going to weaken me, and therefore I need to retaliate with a spell that is going to be like 10 times stronger. So these guys are not like, you hit me one time, I'll hit you one time. These guys are, you hit me one time, I make sure I hit you 10 times, and I make sure you're so dead that you're going to lie down there and you're never going to get up and whack me again. So these guys, they can be a bit mean in games, you know, but they do win, and they win big. Okay, we also have profile number 9, or what I call the stylish gamer. And in astrology, there isn't really a specific profile for this. In fact, a lot of people belong in this category. Now, in astrology, I suppose if Venus, the planet Venus for beauty and like, you know, pretty things is very, very strong in your chart, like for example in the 1st house or the 10th house, then you could belong in the stylish gamer. Now, how you spot the stylish gamer is that's the guy who spends 1 hour on create a character. So when you enter a game, you know how they say that you can create your character, right? Male or female, the hairstyle, and you got sliders to decide like how big or small your eyes are going to be. And oh my god, it's like by the time you get to dressing the character, especially in games where they give you like a million options for dressing your character, well, that's just insane. For them, looking good is like top priority. And if you've tried games like MapleStory or various other games where you can actually pay dollars for dressing up your character. Now, Among Us had this option too. Among Us was free to play, but you could pay extra money so that you could have like all these cute, like, you know, little Among Us like creatures on your shoulder and stuff. Now, the guy who pays for it and then spends about an hour deciding which one to use for every mission, now that is the stylish gamer. That brings us to number 10. Alright, this is what I call the perverse gamer. Now, these guys, they have something a little bit not quite right in the head. Now they are, and in astrology we call this the Mercury-Uranus, or what I call the genius. And these guys, once they're kind of done playing through like the game the normal way, then their next priority is to break the game. They're trying to figure out what are some of the really insane, crazy things that they can do to get unprecedented results, or they just want to see how bad they can be. So these are the guys who play The Sims and then remove the toilet. And when the sim is in the swimming pool, and then they remove all ways for the sim to get out of the pool so that they'll die in the pool. These are also the guys who play strategy games and then block all the ways that the soldiers can move, send them up to the cliff and then have them walk right off the cliff and die, or basically block NPCs and just see them like knocking into the wall like one after another just to get this reaction. Okay, so the perverse gamers are actually very useful because they are also typically the guys who discover the most bugs in the game, because they've gone and pushed the game to its absolute limits. And the good news is that these guys are usually community minded enough to at least inform the developers that, hey, I tried this and it completely it changed it just shut down, crashed the entire game. They're usually happy enough to share this with the developers. That gets us to the very last category on my list. It's number 11, or what I call the storyline gamer. Now these guys, and in astrology we relate this to the Mercury-Neptune, or what I call the storyteller. Now the storyteller essentially plays games as an escape because life is boring and the graphics are better, but like the storyline isn't great, right? So when they go and play games, they like things like RPGs, they like games with a really strong storyline. It doesn't even have to be a romantic storyline. Now those of you who like the really character falls in love with a girl and then have to go through trials and tribulations to be with the girl of his dreams, that one has an additional profile called the romantic, or the artist, Venus-Neptune. But if you only have the Mercury-Neptune, these guys are perfectly fine with a compelling story. It can be a bromance story, it can be go through melodrama kind of story. Even if there's fighting in between, but they actually really live for the the FMVs in between, the cutscenes where they watch their protagonists go through trials and tribulations of life. Okay, so storyline is number 1 for them because it's kind of like the equivalent of watching a soap opera in that sense. Okay, so we kind of come to the end of the 11 profiles of gamers, and I hope you like this. It's a bit different from what I normally do. And I think I'm like a bit more comfortable with showing everybody just how, you know, how insane of a gamer May really is. And also I want to encourage people who are learning astrology to sort of apply it in many other ways besides the conventional ways that we use astrology. Because after all, profiling is in every part of our lives. Okay, so yeah, leave your comments in the box below. Tell me if you like this video, and if you have some pretty like crazy ideas for other things that you'd like me to cover, let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.